going through a how-to on how I paint this kind of particular style of tiger striping, and I took inspiration of this from the 9-hole review guys, specifically Henry, and his Mark 12 is actually where I got the idea to paint it like that, but I'm going to be doing mine on my Savage bolt action, and just prepping it to get ready, using the basics of masking tape, an X-Acto knife, and I'm putting the 10-rounder in it for this one, just because I forgot to paint it last time, and that's how I'm going to remind myself to do it. That's the cheek rest or cheek riser idea from Ryan Kleckner, and here I'm just taping off the muzzle brake because it has threads for a suppressor, which I don't have. Here I am, just taping off the end of the scope, you know, pretty normal stuff. And then I decide to rather sensually make sure the tape is stuck on. This one I'm just using the scope cap to do most of the heavy lifting for me. The tape is just there as sort of a insurance policy, I suppose. So since my rifle has adjustable turrets, what I'm going to do is rotate this elevation knob all the way up and then take it off, put tape on it, things like that. But now, so what I'm going to do is, the reason I'm doing this is whenever I put it back on, I'll put the 0 back to facing the way it is, and I'm going to rotate it downward X amount of rotations. And I, of course, remember this number, and that gets me back to my original 0. Just a fun little fact or thing. Alright, with all the important stuff taped off and ready to go, I'm going to bring this thing outside and paint it. To get that started, I'm going to take this big sheet of paper and rip it in half and use Rust-Oleum camouflage paint. I really suggest using this paint because it doesn't flake. Unless you are really just up close to your material, it's not going to really run on you, and it's super easy to just dust those layers on and makes it super flat. So that's all I'm doing here. Since the rifle's already been painted, I'm not doing too many coats with this khaki, but I would say if your rifle's unpainted or black, to definitely go over it once or twice to make sure that that bottom tan coat is pretty flat. And as you can see, I am just doing real quick short passes. The paint barely looks wet on the weapon, and that's just really kind of how I prefer to do it. Except I am kind of mistreating this Harris bipod, just sort of haphazardly layering it on. But alright, so with that base layer of tan done, now I can go ahead and start doing I don't know, I call it splotches essentially, and I've sped it up here, but I've got my brown, and I've got my paper layered on both sides, and I'm slowly pulling it away as I add layer after layer. So what it does is kind of makes this real shadowing gradient effect, and I think that really helps it look less, I don't know, harsh. So there, all I'm doing is scooting that paper on its left or right side, or at the same time, and just really lightly kind of spraying that paint on top of it. Just almost, like I said, I use the word dusting because it really does just kind of look like you slightly just freckled that paint. Here I am, just, see, I'm holding it there, and then I'm about to scoot it onto either side, add another layer, and it really does just kind of help blend it in. And there's no real rhyme or reason to where I'm placing these stripes or these splotches. I'm sort of just kind of feeling where I'd like to put them. Like, see right there, I wasn't happy with that stripe, so I moved the paper back together to get a little bit of a heavier line. And then I made the forward end of it gradient out more than the rear end of it. So, see, same thing. I'm just picking a spot and putting some paint, and I'm going to scoot it over, do the same thing, but just a little bit lighter and a little bit lighter each time until I pretty much have barely touched that base layer of tan. Here I'm fighting the wind a lot. Yep, there it goes. Something to take note of whenever you're doing this is sometimes you'll find yourself kind of getting into a rhythm where you'll just scoot your paper to the left or the right and just do the same thing, and then all your lines end up being the same direction and the same thickness and the same darkness. And you want to kind of avoid that because it makes a pattern, and those patterns are easier to spot. And I mean, granted, if you're not hiding from an enemy force, you probably don't need to worry about the actual effectiveness of your rifle's camouflage, but it does make it look nice and I think cool. So what I'm going to do with the green is, since I want this to be more of a desert rifle, my alternate colors, which are going to be the green and the black, they're going to be pretty thin and sparsely used. I want the rifle to have more of a brown and tan tone, but this green will be nice because it'll help break apart some of those large chunks of tan and brown, as well as add a little bit of depth and that camouflage effect. So that's why these lines, you're going to see them, they're going to be a lot thinner and usually lighter. One of the things you'll notice I do is usually whenever I'm passing over the area I want to paint, I go over it really quickly or super lightly, and that's because I like to put a light amount of paint on, see what it looks like, and then add more where I think I need it. So I'm doing that here with the barrel. I'm not even bothering doing both sheets of paper. I'm just using it as one hard angle and then adding that kind of shadowed green. I'm also just now noticing that I'm painting this on a black rifle coffee box, so it's a fun little irony. I guess I started to get a little too into my work and forgot where my camera was and started sticking my arm in the way. But so now I've moved on to the black now, and my plan for this was to place it as rather lightly as possible. I don't want it to be real harsh black lines. I want it to be, whenever it dries, almost like a gray. Yeah, you can see as I pull away that black paint starting to dry a little bit, and it's just, those lines are meant to be really thin, really light, and just to be the final break apart of all the coloring. I know there's the classic saying that like black doesn't occur in nature or whatever, but again, I think this just looks cool. And it's used sparingly enough that it's not overdone, and I think it just adds a nice little like M81 vibe to it, which, you know, of course is always cool. Just adding those final black lines, and I think once I pull the paper away, you'll see that where it's dry, they're really light, and they do help kind of break apart that shape. And all I'm doing on the top here is sort of marrying up both sides of the scope. And there it is. I would definitely say get a faraway shot, like look at your gun from a distance, make sure you like everything, and oh yeah, of course, it's obligated that I pull off the tape on camera. It's probably not the highest quality or anything like that, but I guess I'll shut up and let you watch tape get pulled off. Putting everything back on to get the final look of the rifle with all the little accessories back on it. So I hope that if you did watch it, you enjoyed it, and you get to go LARP with your friends, looking like you're from all gillied up. If you're still watching at this point, I really appreciate you enduring my bad microphone and crummy editing. If you ended up using this on your own gun or airsoft, whatever it was, I'd really like to hear about it. That'd make me feel pretty good. If you didn't use it and you hated it, also let me know. It won't make me feel good, but at least I'll know what to change in the future. I intend on making more of these, so if you watched it and liked it, I hope to see you in the future. Alright, take care.